The Red Army's 54th Army was a Soviet field army during the Second World War. It was first formed in the Leningrad Military District in August 1941, and continued in service in the northern sector of the Soviet-German front until the end of 1944. It spent much of the war attempting to break the German siege of Leningrad, in which it helped to achieve partial success in January 1943, and complete success 1 year later. During these operations, the soldiers of the 54th served under 5 different commanders, most notably Col. Gen. II. Fedor Uninsky in the winter of 1941–42. After helping to drive Army Group North away from Leningrad and into the Baltic states in the first 9 months of 1944, the army was deemed surplus to requirements on the narrowing front, and was officially disbanded on the last day of the year. Formation. The 54th Army was first formed in August 1941, in the Leningrad Military District, to the east of the city in the vicinity of the town of Volkow. Its first commander was Marshal of the Soviet Union G.I. Kulik. When it was first formed, the Army's order of battle was as follows: 285th Rifle Division, 286th Rifle Division, 310th Rifle Division, 314th Rifle Division, 27th Cavalry Division, 122nd Tank Brigade, 119th Separate Tank Battalion, 881st and 882nd Corps Artillery Regiments, 150th Pontoon Bridge Battalion. It also contained 4 motorized engineer battalions, and by the end of September it had been reinforced with the 3rd and 4th Guards Rifle Divisions, the 21st Tank Division, and the 16th Tank Brigade. Leningrad was isolated on Sept. 8 when the German forces captured Shlisselburg. The next day Gen. G.K. Zhukov took over coordinating the defense of the city from Marshal K. Voroshilov. 54th Army was under direct command of SDAVK, and on Zhukov's recommendations it was ordered into the attack on the 10th. This first attempt to break the blockade, the First Sinyavino offensive, gained only 6 to 10 kilometers. During 16 days of on-and-off heavy fighting, Kulik was heavily criticized by both SDAVK and Zhukov for this dismal performance. When the Germans pushed back even some of these meager gains, Kulik was sacked, court-martialed and reduced in rank. He was replaced by Lt. Gen. M.S. Korsun, a protégé of Zhukov. On October 26, Korsun was promoted to command of the Leningrad front and was replaced by Lt. Gen. II. Fedor Uninsky, another Zhukov protégé. Tikhvin offensive. A second attempt on Sinyavino was being prepared to start on October 20, but was preempted by the German offensive towards Tikhvin on October 16, which intended to encircle 54th Army on the way to cutting all possible supply routes to Leningrad and linking up with the Finnish army. In the face of this attack, the army, which had the bulk of the Soviet forces between Lake Ladoga and Lake Ilmen, was ordered to transfer the 4th Guards and 310th Rifle Divisions to 4th Army on October 23. By November 8, the entire German offensive had ground to a halt due to Soviet resistance and the winter weather. 54th Army had not been encircled, and while Tikhvin had been taken, there had been no link-up with the Finns, and Army Group North was vastly overextended. A new directive from Hitler ordered yet another attack on the army at Volkow, but a desperate counterattack by 310th Rifle Division stopped the 8th Panzer Division east of the town. At this point, Fedor Uninsky asked that 4th Army's Volkov operational group of 4 rifle divisions and 1 rifle brigade be assigned to his command, which was approved on November 12. While redeploying his forces, Fedyaninski was faced with a German thrust to his army's rear toward Lake Ladoga. The successful counterattack by 285th Rifle Division and 122nd Tank Brigade set the stage for 54th Army to participate in the general Soviet counter-offensive along the entire front. On November 26, the Army's main shock group attacked the German 21st Infantry Division of 1st Army Corps south of Volkow, driving it back several kilometers by the 29th. A few days later, Fedyaninski was further reinforced with the 80th Rifle Division, and on deck 3 he renewed the attack on the German corps, driving its left flank southwards and successively encircling and destroying several companies of the 254th Infantry Division. The 115th and 198th Rifle Divisions then also arrived from Leningrad, joined the assault on the 15th, and helped drive the Germans back to Olomny by the 17th, enveloping the I Corps' left flank on the west bank of the Volkhov River. During the retreat, 54th Army's 1st and 2nd Ski Battalions constantly harassed the Germans' flank and rear. In the final stages, elements of 3 rifle divisions cut the MG-Kirishi rail line, but the army was unable to capture the latter stronghold, which would remain in German hands until the autumn of 1943. Leitauben offensive operation. Having liberated the territory occupied by the Germans in the Tikhvin offensive and caused them significant casualties, Stalin expected his armies to be able to break the siege of Leningrad as part of a series of offensives across the front. Gen. K. A. Meretskov of Volkow Front wrote, "The 4th Army on the right flank was supposed to attack in the general direction of Kirishi and Tosno to encircle and destroy the enemy that had advanced north of Mga to Lake Ladoga in cooperation with the Leningrad Front's 54th Army. The new offensive was launched by 54th Army on Yan 4, 1942, when it once again attacked 1st Corps to the west of Kirishi. 48 hours of heavy fighting produced an advance of only 4 to 5 kilometers, after which a counterattack by 12th Panzer Division drove Fedyaninski's troops back to the starting line. The attack was renewed on Yan 13 and the village of Pogorsk was taken on the 17th, but that was the limit of success. By mid-February, 2nd Shock Army of Volkow Front had driven across that river and was forcing its way through the swamps towards Leitauben, well in the German rear, but were unable to break out decisively toward Leningrad. On February 26, Leningrad Front received the following: the SDAVKA of the Supreme High Command orders. After the 54th Army's shock group has been reinforced on 26-27 February, the 54th Army will launch a decisive offensive in the general direction of Leitauben no later than the 1st of March. By combining the 54th Army's attack with an attack by the Volkow Front's forces, the Front's united forces will completely liquidate the enemy's Leitauben-Chudova grouping and capture the Leitauben-Chudova rail line. Reinforcement of the army with the 4th Guards Rifle Corps made it possible to penetrate the German defenses near Pogorsk on Mar. 15, driving 22 kilometers southwards to within 10 kilometers of Leitauben. The German redeployments brought the advance to a halt by Mar. 31. The 54th Army, while liberating territory, was not successful in linking up with 2nd Shock Army, and the latter army was cut off and destroyed during the following months. Fedyaninski was moved to command of 5th Army in April, and was replaced by Lt. Gen. A.V. Sukhomlin. Operation Polyana Zvezda. 54th Army was only marginally involved in the 2nd Sinyavino offensive during August-October, and was engaged in mostly local fighting through the balance of 1942. At the beginning of 1943, its order of battle was as follows: 115th Rifle Division, 177th Rifle Division, 198th Rifle Division, 281st Rifle Division, 285th Rifle Division, 294th Rifle Division, 311th Rifle Division, 6th Naval Infantry Brigade, 140th Rifle Brigade, 319th Guards Mortar Regiment, 461st Separate Anti-Aircraft Battalion, 124th Tank Brigade, 48th Separate Heavy Tank Battalion, 691 Sapper Regiment. On Yan 12, Leningrad and Volkow fronts launched Operation Iskra, which by the end of the month had finally opened a land corridor to the besieged city, but this also did not directly involve the 54th. However, the success of Iskra, as well as the encirclement and destruction of German 6th Army at Stalingrad and the subsequent offensives in the south, led SDAVKA to plan a larger operation near Leningrad, to be called Operation Polyana Zvezda, with the objective of the complete destruction of Army Group North. The objective of 54th Army was to create a shallow encirclement in conjunction with 55th Army from Leningrad, of the German forces still holding the Sinyavino (MGA) area. The army was to attack north of the village of Smerdinya in the direction of Tosno, where it would meet the 55th. It would then attack towards Lyauben, to divert the attention of German 18th Army from the deep encirclement being planned by Northwestern Front once its forces captured the Demyansk salient and its defenders. The 54th was reinforced before the offensive, which it began on Feb. 10. Sukhumlin attacked the German 96th Infantry Division, which was recovering from the earlier fighting at Sinyavino, with 4 rifle divisions, 3 rifle brigades, and the 124th Tank Brigade, and yet only managed to penetrate 3 to 4 kilometers on a 5 kilometers front in 3 days of heavy fighting. German reinforcements of small battle groups from unengaged sectors brought the advance to a standstill. Meanwhile, 55th Army was faring no better. On February 27, SDAVKA ordered Polestar halted, as almost no progress had been made on any sector. On March 11, Sukhumlin was demoted to deputy commander of the army, and Lt. Gen. S.V. Roginski took over command, which he would hold until the army was disbanded. Leningrad-Novgorod offensive. The front went back to relative inactivity for the remainder of 1943. At the beginning of October, after nearly 2 years of intermittent pressure, Army Group North evacuated the Kirishi salient to free up desperately needed reserves. In spite of this, the Army Group was in a very precarious position as the Soviet fronts began planning a winter offensive. Prior to the offensive, 54th Army's order of battle comprised 111th Rifle Corps with 44th Rifle Division, 288th Rifle Division, 115th Rifle Corps with 281st Rifle Division, 285th Rifle Division, 14th and 53rd Rifle Brigades. Independent divisions, 80th, 177th and 198th Rifle Divisions. 2nd Fortified Region, 124 Separate Tank Regiment, 107th and 501st Separate Tank Battalions, 48th Heavy Tank Battalion, plus 9 assorted regiments of artillery. The plan that was issued to Roginski between October and December must have looked familiar. a drive westwards towards Tosno by Auburn and Tudova as part of a short encirclement, followed by an advance southwest to Luga. However, in the past year the German forces had grown weaker, the Soviets stronger, and the offensive would be launched on 3 attack axes. The first 2 of these, from Leningrad itself and from the Oranienbaum bridgehead, began on January 14. 54th Army launched the third prong on the 16th. The enemy, who has to defend simultaneously along several directions, was subjected to yet another assault. The Volkow Front's 54th Army went over to the attack. The direction of the attack is toward Lyuban. However, the enemy's resistance still has not been overcome. He is continuing to cling fiercely to every clump of ground and launching counterattacks. It is requiring considerable bravery and selflessness to overcome him. Rodzinski led his attack with 80th Rifle Division and 115th Rifle Corps, adding 44th Rifle Division early on the 17th. Although the attack had only advanced 5 kilometers by Jan 20, it was preventing German 38th Army Corps from transferring forces to even harder press sectors. On Jan 25, the army was reinforced with the new 119th Rifle Corps from 8th Army, and on the next night finally liberated Tosno, and reached the railroad southeast of Lyuban, forcing the Germans to abandon the latter. 2 German corps were in danger of encirclement if the 54th could link up with 59th Army. By the end of the month, the prospect of trapping the entire 18th Army presented as Rodzinski's troops advanced on Luga from the northeast. On the 30th, Hitler finally gave permission for 18th Army to pull back to the Luga River defense line, which was already compromised. The following day, 54th Army began pursuing 38th Corps. 115th Rifle Corps advanced 75 kilometers in 9 days and captured the town of Ordizh on Feb. 8. The next day, in a major regrouping, the 115th was transferred to 67th Army and Rodzinski's headquarters redeployed to Novgorod to retake command of 111th as well as 119th Rifle Corps. Once this was complete, the army was ordered to penetrate the German defense west of Shimsk, thereafter advancing to Polkov. At midnight, Feb. 13, Volkow Front was disbanded, and 54th Army rejoined Leningrad Front. On the 17th, this new command proposed that 54th and 8th Armies continue their offensive towards Ostrov. In order to breach the German Panther Line in that sector, the army resumed its offensive that day, aiming to take the Utogosh-Soltsi-Shimsk line by the 19th, which would threaten the German 10th Corps. But that corps was successful in holding the line for 3 days as it withdrew. Following this, the 54th pursued for 4 days to a depth of 60 kilometers before liberating the town of Dno on February 24 in conjunction with 1st Shock Army. Polkow was taken on February 26, and after another 3 days of combat on an advance of 65 kilometers, the army reached the Panther Line on Ma. 1 between Ostrov and Pskov. During March and the first half of April, the depleted armies of Leningrad and Second Baltic fronts were ordered into repeated attacks against this line, with meager results reached at high cost. Finally, with even the weather against them, shortly after midnight on April 18, Stalin ordered the fronts onto the defense. The following day, 3rd Baltic Front was formed on the base of 20th Army headquarters, with 42nd, 67th and 54th Armies under command. Baltic offensive in disbandment. During the following months, 54th Army rebuilt its forces in anticipation of a summer offensive. This began to its south on June 22 with the launch of Operation Bagration. As Army Group Center reeled back from the Red Army's attack, a gap opened between it and Army Group North, which the latter could do little to mend as it was under pressure from holding attacks. Finally, 3rd Baltic Front joined the offensive on July 8, with the intention to breach the Panther Line and seize Ostrov and Pskov. By the 19th, German 16th Army had pulled back to a switch line called the Lithuania position, but Soviet forces kept going, and Pskov had to be given up on the 22nd. After the breaching of the Panther Line, 3rd Baltic Front was directed northwest both to retake Estonia and cut off retreating elements of Army Group North in the Tartu offensive, and later the Riga offensive. Although most of the German forces were able to escape, the former objective was won. As these offensives drew to a close, it became apparent that 54th Army was no longer needed on a front that was contracting in length as it drew closer to Germany. Following the capture of Riga in mid-October, 3rd Baltic Front was disbanded, and 54th Army was removed to SDAVKA reserves. On December 13, Lt. Gen. Rodzinski was placed in reserve. He would later briefly command 67th Army. On the last day of 1944, 54th Army was officially disbanded, and its forces were distributed to other formations.